Yeah, still running with track and field on the zone. The NCAA Southeastern Conference Championships in Fayetteville, Arkansas was the stage for what many thought was a historic moment on Saturday. The world indoor 400-meter record, which has stood at 44.52 seconds since 2018, was quite surprisingly beaten at the meet, with Canadian Christopher Morales-Williams running a blistering 44.49 seconds to win the SEC title. However, in a shocking development, the time has not been ratified. On Tuesday, the U.S. Track and Field and Cross Country Coaches Association said it was due to an issue with the blocks. The USTF CCCA also said that Morales-Williams, who attends the University of Georgia, was drug tested following the race. Hence, that's not the reason for the non-ratification. However, they did say that the time will remain a world best. Lance and Mariah, this is quite an interesting situation we have in the NCAA with Morales-Williams setting a world record, and it has not been ratified. Let us say it's not the first time in recent years that we have seen a world record not being ratified by World Athletics. Remember, Arian Knighton, the American teenager, ran 19.49 to open his season a few years ago, and it was not ratified as a world under-20 record because the drug testing measures were not in place for the meet. Also remember that at the Carifta Games in 2022, Jamaica's under-20 sprint relay girls team broke the world junior record. That was not ratified either because of a similar drug testing situation. And remember, we ventilated that issue here on the SportsMax Zone with Alexander Williams, the then chairman of the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, apologizing for the mishap in that situation. And here we have another situation where a world record has been set and it will not be ratified.
Yeah, and of course, citing a starting block issue. And Ricardo, for me, like as a young person, Christopher Morales, I'm thinking, you know, it must be difficult because, first of all, I was reading an interview on CNN where earlier that particular day, he actually was not feeling well. He still went out and, of course, was able to have such a significant achievement despite being young. And many people may say, you know, of course, he can probably go back and do it, especially with the speed that he's at. It's still, for me, very disheartening because this record has been there for quite some time. And to see him break it and, of course, not reap the benefits, so the official title, I'll say, you know, a bit disappointing.
Why would it still be recognized as a world best but not a world record?
I think essentially what the world best says is this is the fastest time that has ever been run, regardless of conditions or rules. That's sort of what I read from that situation. So there is an acknowledgement that this is the fastest time that has ever been run, but World Athletics cannot ratify it as an official world record, which in technical terms, you don't really need to say official world record, you just need to say world record. And World Athletics would not ratify it as such because the conditions under which you ratify world records were not satisfied on that day. And in this case, specifically the issue with the starting block.
Yeah, but you know, I guess we have to accept that because that is the rule of thumb as far as world athletics is concerned. And as you referenced earlier on, Ricardo, we have seen this happen before. It's not the first time, but it would be devastating to Morales, given the effort that he put in and seeing something that was out of his realm or out of his control, affecting so negatively what he has recorded.
Yeah.
And you make a good point, Lance, because there are a few questions, and we are to have a guest for this segment. Hopefully we'll sort that out, because so many questions to be asked here. Why were the World Athletics requirements for the blocks not in place for a meet of the level of the SEC championships?
Yes.
The SEC is the leading conference in United States track and field, collegiate track and field. They produce year in, year out the fastest performances generally. And so you know that when you go to the SEC, there is always the possibility that records will go, including a world record. So there's that one. And then also, I see this one going around quite a lot, whether the rules are too stringent and inflexible as it relates to ratification of world records. All right, we are joined on the phone now by Kareem Street Thompson, of course, the former Cayman Islands athlete, a 2001 World Indoor Championship medalist. He won Pan American and Commonwealth Games medals as well, and still has a Carifta Games long jump record. He won multiple medals at the Carifta Games, and he's now coaching at the University of Texas, San Antonio. Kareem Street Thompson joins us on the SportsMax Zone. Kareem, how are you doing? Good afternoon.
Doing very well. We're sandwiched in between the conference championships and the NCAA championships, which start next week. And World Athletics seems to be on everybody's mind right now.
Yeah, I just want to get your initial thoughts on Christopher Morales-Williams' record not being ratified by World Athletics, or not expected to be ratified by World Athletics.
It's a very interesting situation, because what seems to me is happening is that World Athletics is trying to separate themselves as their own entity. If you are considered a professional, then everything and all roads have to go through World Athletics. They're setting parameters as far as drug testing. They're setting parameters as far as technology used at the long jump, the horizontal jumps boards. They're stipulating that if a world record in the 400 or any race is going to be ratified, you have to use certain starting blocks. And it's very, very particular. And so these things have been put in fine print. If you go on the website, there are rules and regulations, and they're sticking by it. And, you know, in situations like this, I think the easy thing is to go back and say, well, here's what we said, and these are the rules and regulations we set. You just didn't follow those regulations. So you have a situation where twice now, the 400-meter world record indoors is not being ratified.
It sounds to me, Kareem, that you don't necessarily agree with the position of World Athletics.
It's, as I said before, it's something that, if I had to categorize it, it feels like World Athletics is in the middle part of a haircut. They're not quite at the part where everything is set and everyone on board or everyone involved is aware that these rules exist. And, you know, I think we're just being reminded over and over again now. And it's a bit, in my opinion, it's a bit embarrassing that, you know, we can see proof that this record has been set, but now we're having to backpedal and go, well, you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you didn't do this. It's very pointed right now, and it's very directed at the NCAA, because we're also seeing a situation with the standard at the NCAA meet not being recognized from a point standpoint. The NCAA meet every year, indoor and outdoor, is considered one of the top 5, top 10 meets in the world. And yet because of, you know, whether it's doping, whether it's blocks, there are all manner of things as to why the NCAA meet is not being given the points that it deserves.
Yeah, and Kareem, a couple of things here, because let's be clear, and I understand what you're saying in terms of the ranking system, because what happens is that World Athletics has a ranking system, and they rank the level of meets with World Championships and the Olympics at the top. Then you have like the Diamond League meets and so on,
Yep.
and the NCAA meets are some way further down.
Yes,
After you
yes.
go through the World Challenge meets and all of that. I am not sure I necessarily disagree with that, but that's, I think we can have that conversation another day. But let me ask you
Yeah.
this question. Have you ever watched a race and an athlete has been adjudged to false start, but you did not see it with the naked eye?
Absolutely. And even from my stance, and I've had the opportunity to do commentary work, and one of the first things that I am told is that before you make any judgments on anything that happens in the race, let the race play out. Now, I will say this: when you don't have sensors in a race, it is really hard to see those small margins, whether it's faster than point one of a second or slower than point one of a second. You can't make that judgment. Um, uh, Technically, you can't,
Yeah.
right? So, I get where World Athletics is coming from, but at the same time, I mean, you're talking about the 400 here. You're not talking about
But
the
the world
six.
record was broken by 3/100ths of a second, though, Kareem. So I'm
Yes,
saying, let us say hypothetically, because we really don't know, because
right.
the sensors were not in place, which means that there is no reaction time for us to look at. So we
Exactly.
cannot know beyond a shadow of a doubt that every single athlete in that race went off following the gun,
Legally.
and that exactly
Yes.
legally, and that
Right.
there was no
Yes.
false start. And given
Yes.
that, don't you think that World Athletics are well within their right to say that if we can't tell that for sure, we cannot ratify this as a world record?
Absolutely. I can see exactly where they're coming from, and I get their reasoning for doing this. Um, the thing that sticks out to me is, and I think you were talking about this earlier, the SEC has the ability to get these blocks with these sensors. You're talking about some of the richest programs in the country. And this is something that's been around for over 5 years now. And it's
Yes.
been, people have been aware of this. Um, and you have the perfect storm, I feel, because the SEC is also breeding ground for the next Olympians and for the people that we're going to see at the World Championships and beyond.
And therefore, my question, why isn't more pressure being put on the SEC and other conferences and other meets in the United States of America? Because I think this is a problem not just in the SEC, but as far as I'm concerned, a problem all round. Why isn't more pressure being put on them to ensure that the
Yes.
requirements are in place so that when these spectacular performances happen,
Right.
they can be ratified as world records or other records?
Well, I feel here's what I think. I think if the NCAA as an organization goes into goes into a room and comes out and says, we have to have this apparatus at all of our championships.
Yes.
We and mandates that all the conferences, if this is a conference meet, if this is a major competition, we need to have this. Not every school has the budget to do this. But when you're talking about championships, and especially with the caliber of athletes that are competing um, at let's just say the SEC or Big Ten or Big 12, I mean, you're talking about world class talent, and it's a shame that they're being robbed of this opportunity to actually show the world what they're capable of from a technological standpoint.
Yeah, very much the case. Kareem, we appreciate you stopping by and having this discussion with us. And I'm sure this is one that will continue because I don't think this one is over yet by a long shot. We'll catch up again, man. Maybe I'll see you in Grenada soon.
Absolutely. I will be there. I look forward to that.
All right, awesome. And viewers, in case you couldn't tell, my beef is not with World Athletics on this one. It's with the NCAA and the respective conferences who refuse to put these measures in place. And I think that's who Christopher Morales-Williams, the SEC, should be having a beef with, not with World Athletics on this one. That's how I feel. Let's have the discussion. Or let's take a break. We'll be back with more.